Hi, my name's Claire and this is Peachy Keen Pans. I hope you're all going really well. Today I wanted to introduce a new project, so I'm pretty excited for this. It is going to be called Pan Those Peach Palettes because, put simply, I am panning 2 peach palettes. So these are an eyeshadow palette and a face palette. They're both Too Faced palettes because I own a fair bit of Too Faced makeup from when I first got into makeup. I guess for a very brief backstory, and some of you may know already, what got me into makeup in this kind of more passionate or intense way as opposed to like casual use it to look better kind of way. What kind of took it from just beautifying into like a more creative and exciting space for me was in part getting really into these themed and scented kind of kitsch palettes from Too Faced in the late 2010s, so I think around the 2018-19 time. And yeah, I mean, basically their peach collection, not the first one that came with the original kind of larger peach palette, but that second round of peach collection that they did really just like hit a spot for me, a sweet spot, an excitement, a sort of, oh my god, this is so fun. And so I ended up getting a lot of peach palettes. So aside from the 2 that are going to be in the project, I also have 2 heavily frankened palettes. So this one is my white peach palette, which I did a pan that palette for I think 2 years ago, and I really loved focusing on that one. And then I also have the OG Just Peachy Mattes, which is no longer Just Peachy Mattes because I added in a bunch of shimmers that I thought tied it all together. So yeah, these have been well loved on. I should also say this shade Just Peachy, the reason that there's so much kind of gouged out of it is because I did press that into Tickled Peach, which is one of my focus palettes for this project. So just as a side note, this is the shade from the other peach palette because I scraped out the original shade that was in here. I'll get into that more in a moment, but basically I guess I just wanted to preface it with this project is quite exciting for me. It's a bit random timing to be starting in June. I did think I could start in July because then it's like a 6-month project until the end of the year with the option of rolling it into next year. But I was just too keen, so I thought I'll start now. And basically, yeah, I have a real soft spot. I have a real soft spot for peach themed makeup. I mean, my handle is Peachy Keen Pans. Most of what I consider neutrals for myself are peachy in tone, and it's, you know, I'm into the cuteness, I'm into the fruity kind of theme and everything. As you can see, I'll try and give you kind of a sense of here what this looks like. It's been pretty beaten up, like even you can see the serial number has completely faded. And funnily enough, so here's how it's looking at the moment. Interestingly, this peach palette was something that I bought secondhand to begin with. When I was first getting into makeup, I was still at uni and didn't have much of a budget for makeup. And I believe I bought this palette in 2017 or 2018. No, it would be 2016 or 17. I'm just lining it up with what year of uni I was in because I did my honours in 2017. That was kind of the beginning, the burgeoning of the makeup enthusiasm for me. So I bought this palette secondhand on Carousel, which is kind of like, I think in Australia only version of Depop, but has and definitely did have a lot of makeup on it. And yeah, over the years I got a lot of use out of it. I might put some of the progress pictures somewhere up here so you can kind of see over the years how it's looked over the time that I've used it so far. And I suppose when I first got it, I was someone who didn't actually wear much makeup at all. It was my first face palette that I ever bought. I wasn't someone who wore blush regularly, so that stayed, you know, relatively untouched for quite a while. I did wear the highlight, and clearly, like, I focused on the shade and hit pan on it intentionally as part of a different project quite a while ago. And yeah, and I feel that I had sort of mixed feelings about it, because in a way, this leans very warm, and I think I thought of myself as being quite cool toned for a while, although I do think now I think I'm more neutral. If you disagree, feel free. I feel there's a lot of those a lot of the color theory and color matching gals and pals out there, you guys know, a level of, I don't know, I feel that you out there who care about these things have a level of understanding of undertones that I don't necessarily fully have yet. So I thought I was cool toned for a long time because I was quite sort of pink, but I think maybe that was just my redness. And I don't really know, even when I look at like my neck, I don't think this is cool tone. I think it's probably neutral. So that was why, though, mentally where I was at when I first got this palette was me thinking the bronzer is really warm, not really sure I can pull it off. The blush I wasn't wearing all that much, that kind of gradually increased over time, and I definitely have worn it a fair bit now, like you can see, she's been used, right? The highlight also I thought was a bit too dark for me, which arguably is still true. Like you can see in the swatches, I'll put the swatch, my little swatch video here. You can see that it is darker than the color of like my wrist, but I think given that I'm always putting it over the top of where there's already blush, I don't think it matters that it's darker than my skin tone. I feel people get a bit hung up on the idea of a highlighter being too light or too dark for you, but in my case, if I've already put down a product that is deeper than my natural skin tone, which is this blush, and then I'm layering highlight over it, I don't think it would matter that much. But yeah, I'm looking forward to using this. I have already started using it, so I'm filming today, which is like, what day is today? Today is the 8th. So I've already been using it for a week and tracking my uses for a week, and I also was using it before that as well, kind of getting hyped, you know. But yeah, that's the first of the palettes, is the Sweet Peach Glow. As I said, I'm pretty sure I got it in 2017, which makes it at least 6 years old. So, I mean, I know some people out there probably wouldn't even be game to put that on their face, fair enough, and others of you might, you know, argue makeup doesn't really expire in the way that we think it does. Anyway, varied opinions out there. I'm totally comfortable with using it, and I would like to, you know, potentially finish it, or if I finish the bronzer in here and I use up like half the blush and I'm just left with the blush and like a chunk of highlighter, I would consider getting rid of the palette at that point, maybe de-putting that blush and putting it somewhere else. I probably won't keep the highlighter, and I do think the bronzer is the one I'm most likely to be able to finish. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at and what I expect from it. Now this palette, I got in 2018 in December, because I remember where I was working at a research institute, and one of my colleagues was American, Kim, she was great, and when she went back to the States, I asked her if she could get this for me, because this was like a limited holiday release from Too Faced, December of 2018, and I was so excited for it. And actually that was close to around the time that I started my panning account on Instagram, which I've had for a very long time. I've only obviously started YouTube relatively recently, but my Instagram account tracks back years and years now, years worth of panning and makeup adoration on there. But basically, yeah, she brought this palette back for me, and I used it as it was for quite a while and really enjoyed it, and enjoyed that it was like so cute and tiny, you know, like I know it's a little kitsch, actually it's very kitsch, it's obviously kitsch, but I'm into that. I frankened this palette twice, 3 times really if you think about it. So I think my first ever video on here was me mixing some of these shades to make a blush. So you know, I'll try and link that in the cards, haven't done that before, but I'll try and pop that up there. I'll get that blush out as well so I can show you how she's looking. But first I'll explain. Basically, this palette, I'll put what it originally looked like up here somewhere as well. So originally, this shadow was a hot pink shimmer, or like a, you know, mid-tone pink shimmer, I guess you could say. And this color was a dark, like a blackened purple shimmer. This one was the first one that I scraped out. I was like, look, just not going to use it. I don't like a dark shimmer. It's not my style. This one, the reason that it's, you know, that I got rid of the pink was not because I didn't like it, but because I'd started layering some of these shadows as a blush while I was focusing on this palette briefly, I think last year. And what I found was that I preferred using what was in here originally as a blush rather than as a eyeshadow. So what I did was scrape the entirety of that out. I think use a little bit of the, well, a fair bit of the brown, because I wanted this sort of like browny rosy blush color. So I used a bit of the brown. I think I used some of this, but I can't remember. And ended up with this little blush. So originally in the video you would see I used alcohol to press it. I then had to repress it because it shattered and I dry pressed it. So you can probably see it's ended up quite sort of textured. Well, yeah, because every time I pick up, I'm kind of like, because it wasn't, how do I explain? Because this was not mixed with alcohol this time, it was just dry pressed. There are kind of chunks where the pigment isn't totally integrated. I didn't make it completely smooth and I was going to say coagulated, completely smooth and homogeneous mix. But anyway, this is what I am using as blush now. It is using, I think I used only peachy shades for this. Hence it smells like peach, which is kind of fun. It's also Too Faced shadows in a Too Faced compact. It all kind of like thematically makes sense to me. This was also, the original blush that was in here, Baby Love, was the first blush that I ever finished. So this is just like a fun little bit of makeup history for me, personal makeup history. Anyway, I digress as usual. But what I put in here and what I put in here, as you know, this shadow is from the other peach palette, the Just Peachy Mattes palette. And this one is, it was originally a loose pigment from Femme Fatale Cosmetics, which is an Australian indie brand. And it's basically like a bright green with a bit of a blue shift. And it, yeah, it's one that I pressed because I don't like using loose pigments. So I decided to press it originally into a single, and then I decided to put it into this compact because I thought it would be cute to match the little green leaf in here. So the only thing is that in a way this compact is now quite a bit more pink than the inside colors are. Like this is actually quite orangey if you think about it, like an orangey peach rather than a pinky peach. But I'm okay with that. I'm really happy with how it looks now, and yeah, that was why I put the green in. So I'll also show you the swatches of this palette that I did earlier so that you can see what they look like. And yeah, I mean, basically, I'm going to be tracking, I'll show you how I'm tracking usage for both of these palettes. So it's in my diary, in the makeup section, which is at the back, which is here. So this is June so far, and I need to add a couple of tallies from today, having used it now. But this is kind of how it's going to look. This is the format that I used when I tracked my Pan That palette a couple of years ago, and I found I really liked it. It's very easy to draw given that my notebook has a dot grid. And it is also, they're also both in my inventory. Oh, no, sorry. I don't keep a face product inventory visually. I only do that for eyeshadow. So you can also see that the eyeshadow is here. So if for any reason I couldn't remember the layout and which shade was where when I was filling this out, I would be able to check back and see which shades I'd used, if that makes sense. But yeah, I will add my tally marks in now and just see how I'm tracking. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, I've just updated it, but that's kind of where I'm at for June so far, being a week in. And yeah, I will keep it running for the rest of the year. I think this will be really fun. Yeah, it's also something where I have previously done a Pan That palette, and I've only ever focused on one palette at a time when I've done that. And I've also previously done I created a panning project called Pan Those Peaches, which was really fun. And that was just kind of like a full face of peachy products that I was focusing on last year. And I think this is a kind of cool way to bring those two ideas together. I mean, it's very straightforward. I'm just panning 2 peach palettes, but I've also never done 2 palettes at one time. And I think doing like the face palette and the eye palette will hopefully be a fun way to use them. In terms of goals, I'd actually like, part of me wants to finish this. And then the other part of me knows immediately that that's not going to happen. Like, I'm not someone who uses an entire eyeshadow almost ever. I don't know, I don't actually know that that's ever happened yet. I don't think it has. So I'm happy if for any reason I end up frankening something else out of it, fine, so be it. If I use up, for example, half of the shades, if I were capable of doing that and really using up half the shades, maybe I'd get rid of the palette, or maybe I'd fill it with new shades. I'm really not too sure yet. I just felt like I wanted to do a pan that palette again. I think this is hitting the spot. What I'm going to do now is show you how I got this look. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can probably tell already exactly what's where, but I'm going to show you nonetheless and explain a bit about how I like to use the face products as well as the eye products. Okay, alright, I just had to edit out mad coughing fit, so excuse me if that was a bit jumpy. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to cover. I think that sums it up really. It's a set of colours that I'm very comfortable with. I think this is going to be really fun. If for any reason, or really what I said, if by any chance any of you also happen to have more than one peach palette and would like to do this project as well, please feel free to join me. Please feel free to use the tag pan those peach palettes. I do think it's probably very specific, and I don't know how many people are willing to pan more than one peach palette at a time, but if that's you, absolutely go for it. I would love that. And if you've panned either of these palettes or anything similar, do let me know how it went or how you're going with it, and I'll jump straight into showing you how I did this and see you in a moment. I will get straight into showing you how I use these products, or how I have been using these products for today. Yeah, I suppose I'll keep it very peachy, which makes sense. So anywho, basically, I will be using all of these. I think what I'm going to do is overlap the bronzer and the blush a bit. I guess I've been finding recently that I see less of a sort of categorical distinction between bronzer and blush, and I do find that the more neutral kind of blushes work just as well in the sort of places where I'd normally bronze. So I mean, for me, like, I am on the fair to light sort of end of the color spectrum, probably squarely in fair. I'm not like the absolute fairest who can normally never find their shade. I'm not kind of at that level, but I'm in the fair kind of category. And basically where I'd normally place bronzer, or where I've developed, you know, the habit of placing bronzer, is kind of along the sides of my face, kind of coming down, but like, if it's too warm, it will look a bit silly having it down here. I feel like that makes more sense for a contour color that looks like a shadow. I do kind of bring it along here, slightly lower than my blush. I normally put my blush a bit higher, but in a way, again, as I was saying, I think the overlap is what works for me. Like, if I have, say, bronzer along here, kind of in this section, and then here, having the blush like overlap and actually overlap this part as well, I find makes it look more seamless. And in a way that the value of the color, like how dark it is what matters more than the tone of it, in terms of just giving my face dimension after I have put on a base layer. So at the moment, all I'm wearing is my current base product, which is like a concoction, a mixture of a dark, like a BB cream that's too dark for me, mixed with a white mixing medium to make it the right shade for me. It's currently housed in here, and it's a combination of these two products, neither of which I really love, but to be honest, mixed together, they're good enough. And I am panning them, so that's why I'm wearing those two. Then I also have a peach color corrector under my eye and a little bit of spot concealing. I also did put concealer around my nose, but I have a cold at the moment, and so I've been blowing my nose a fair bit, so I think that's kind of like already worn off and has gone a little bit red again. I might actually touch that up now and then get into using these products, using my focus palettes on my face and on my eyes. So I'll also prime my eyes. I haven't done that yet. Okay. I'm just using the Too Faced Shadow Insurance Primer. I also have the Milani eyeshadow primer. I'm basically using up the Too Faced one, and then I will switch over to the Milani one as my main primer. But yeah, the Too Faced one works really well for me. I do have slightly oilier eyelids, so it definitely helps to stop that kind of midday creasing. Alright, so I've also, oh yeah, I forgot to say, I also did lightly powder my face, so that's the other thing. Not sort of all of it and not very heavy today. But yeah, there is a little bit that has just kind of slightly mattified. So I've been using this brush for my bronzer recently, and as I said, just kind of taking it on the edges of my face. Sorry, I have the mirror over here, so that's kind of what I'm angled towards. But yeah, as I said, just kind of like, I'm pretty messy with it. Really what I want is just to get dimension back into my face after putting down a base product. And I guess it does, in a way, slim the face a little. I mean, I'm not here trying to morph my face too much. I'm not really a contouring person, but I think it just, yeah, makes that sort of not as flat as it otherwise might look. And I find that this brush is good, that it sort of picks up, you know, enough but not too much. I am actually going to do the thing that I said I wasn't going to do, so I'm going under here as well, just with the excess that's left on the brush. Oh yeah, and then I do sort of like, again, it's not really contour, but I just kind of like brush it along my nose, in a sort of like, again, bringing color back into the center of my face kind of a way. Sort of like the contour, but not really bothering to do it properly, to be honest. Alright, then I'm going to go in with the blush. I have made the mistake of playing this on too heavy a couple times, so I'm just going to try and, that's why I'm using this brush as well, is that I think it's not as, yeah, it's not as dense, and using a really dense brush, I have accidentally overdone it in the past, so I'll just kind of bring it really like apples up along the temples. Okay. And then what I generally have to do, because my window is there, my mirror is here, I have to like angle to check. But basically to check, am I looking symmetrical? I'm looking symmetrical enough. I think I'll go a little bit heavier, just on the main sort of bouncy part. Okay. And just kind of a little bit on the bridge of my nose and on my chin. I think that's good. Good. And then a bit of the highlighter as well. Okay. You know, funnily, I find over the years, blush has become quite essential for me in a way that I do think, like, if I'm doing, you know, anything more than just, say, lip gloss or mascara or something, blush has always got to be a part of that. Whereas highlighter, not so much. Maybe because it does often look, or often ends up looking a little, I don't know, artificial or something, or a bit more glam, if you will. But yeah, anyway, I guess you probably can see this is not super heavy, and it just, I think these colours are very easy for me. So that's why, in a way, one of the reasons why I wanted to focus on this palette. So I think it is actually achievable to wear down these imprints and hopefully hit pan and maybe use up that bronzer. We'll see. Now in terms of the eye look, maybe I'll just say what I'm going to do and then show you the end look. So basically I'm going to do my kind of easiest version of a look with this little palette. So I will use the lid setting shade to set the lid and sort of highlight the brow bone, although again, it's kind of just my skin color. I'll go lid, crease, maybe outer corner. I don't think I'll bother with a wing. Yeah, I don't think I'm feeling that today, but that is what I would kind of use it for. I'm also intending to use this in my eyebrows and on my beauty marks, although it's a little messy, but that is my intention. Anyway, so then I'll use this in the inner corner, and that'll probably be it. I can't quite see a way to put the green in, although obviously, like, given that I'm going to be panning this palette, I should probably figure out a way to put the green in. But anyway, I'm going to do this look. I'll come back to you, show you what the whole face looks like. Okay, so there you have it. This is the final look. I did end up going in with a little bit extra blush just because the eye look ended up, you know, relatively punchy. I used, as I said, these two as the main colors. This one kind of in the brow bone, and then this one as both the inner corner highlight and also kind of like pulling it into the lid a bit, because this is relatively flat as a shimmer. Even though I put it over a glitter primer, it's still kind of flat. And then yeah, I used these two a tiny bit in the outer corner to deepen it, but like barely a touch. And on the lower lash line, used a combination of these two. Really just the leftover shimmer that was on my pinky. You can see there's still a bit there. And that is normally what I do for a lower lash line, is just use whatever was on my lid and just kind of smudge it along the lower line. But yeah, that's kind of how I've been using it so far. Obviously, in terms of what I can do in here, I can also use, oh, hey, look at that. I have a second, I don't know if you can see that, like the second tiny baby pen next to the main one. That's kind of fun. Anyway, but yeah, so I can also do a more neutral look using these two. This is a little dark on my lid, so I would probably top it with that one for like a brown. I do think the only way I'm going to get through this is using it on my brows or as a liner, so I'll start doing that as well. And the green is a bit of a wild card, so we'll just have to see how that's going. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up, and I hope this is interesting for you guys, I guess, and I'll update you each month, let you know how it's going. See you next time. Bye.